When I got the opportunity offered to me to go and play in Germany, they wouldn't take my family. I realized that I'm not going to play professional football, and I'm okay with that. The kind of sacrifice it took to provide for a family that you started, that was on you, your decision. I was 21.
G'day everyone, welcome to Rule of Reason. My guest today is Jack Capewell. He is going to share his story, and it's a story that involves family, faith, sacrifice, and responsibility. I'm keen for you guys to hear it. So let's jump straight in. Jack, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, man.
For anyone who doesn't know you, meeting you for the first time, who is Jack Capewell?
You know what? I'm not too sure either. I'm just another average dad. I still consider myself relatively young, so still figuring that out myself.
Well, let's go early days. Let's start with, so you grew up in Brisbane?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, as you said, born and raised in Brisbane, only child. So I've always been a fan of solitude. I asked my parents for siblings when I was younger, but I didn't realize how much of a superpower it was when I was younger to be the only one that they had to put all of their energy into. Church was a part of our family practice for a while at the start of my life, or I'd say probably since starting at City Point Christian College, which is, it was COC, Christian Outreach College back then. And we went to the church there, and we had friends that were from church and went to church in other places. And we kind of just fell out of that, I think. My parents decided that it obviously wasn't for us. It wasn't what we believed in anymore. It wasn't what they believed in anymore. They continued to send me to Christian schools. I stayed on at private school once we'd moved away from the church. And so I fell away from that, which was, to me that was normal, because no one else in my life except for a couple of people would harp on about it, so to speak. So it felt natural for me. And I kind of went on that journey alone through high school, through middle school and high school, being at a Christian school. They would teach us religious education and stuff like that. We would read the Bible, we would do the Lord's Prayer in assembly, we would sing hymns and everything like that. So it was always a constant in my life, but whether I was actually in relation with God or it was a practice of mine was not the case all the time. It was just going through the motions, because that was what school was to me.
So your partner is Jordan. You guys met pretty young, yeah?
Yeah, I met Jordan when I was 10 years old. I believe it was New Year's or around that time of year at least. And I had a group of friends. Mum and Dad had befriended some other couples on the local estate. So we all lived in a suburban estate, new developments, kids around. I would meet them at the park. I would bring them home. They would meet their parents, and that's how relationships formed. And then we got introduced to other families who also had children around the same age. And there was kind of a group of families for a while there. And I had a group that I would hang out with. We would get home from school. School holidays, we'd be out at the local park on our scooters and skateboards, just general children stuff, kid stuff. And I met Jordan when I was out with them. We were riding the streets on our scooters, as you do when you're 10 years old. And she was hanging out with her friends at her house. And she was a few houses up from one of the other families' houses we were at for dinner. And it's a funny story, and Jordan will reaffirm this for you, but the moment I saw her, I rode away. I had massive heart eyes for Jordan the very moment I saw her. She was the coolest chick I'd ever seen in my life and way out of my league. And so my first instinct was to retreat.
When you were 10?
When I was 10.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I just was like, how do I impress this chick? Act too cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
so-
mean, I think that's a pretty common guy response.
Yeah,
If you see a
absolutely.
girl that you're interested in, it's to freak out.
Yeah, exactly. and you know, it's funny talking to her about it. The older we got, the experience was the exact same. Like, that's exactly what I remember doing, and that's exactly what she remembers seeing. And so we didn't really get to know each other that first time we met. But from that point forward, our friendship groups started to merge and see each other more regularly. And I befriended the two guys that were in her friendship group, and we became close. And then that's how I became close with Jordan. And yeah, she was, I think, she's only a year and a bit older than me. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, she was at a different stage of life, because 11 and 10 can seem like a massive gap, or she was 12 at the time. So 12 and 10 is a massive gap when you're there.
Yep.
But, you know, not so much when you're 29 and 27.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into where you guys are at now with family,
Yeah,
so you grew up and fell in love with American football,
I did.
NFL, right?
It was always sport in general. AFL was my first love. But then once I found football, American football, gridiron, just to...
For Australians who don't understand, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just call it football now. But once I found that sport, I thought it was just something so different. There was something so appealing about it being such a unique sport in this country that made me want to pursue it more than I'd pursued any other sport.
So when was that? When did you start playing?
2013.
Oh, that's a good year.
2013. Yeah,
It's a good year for the Seahawks.
it was.
It's my team.
And that was the period I come along, and you know, Jesse Williams had just been drafted to the Seahawks, and
Yep.
he was from my local club.
Yeah,
So,
right.
You know, it all seemed so possible to me when I was that age.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
I was
13, 14.
yeah, 13, 14.
Yeah, so you come into, you played for the Ravens.
Bayside Ravens,
Bayside Ravens. You've come in, you've seen one of the boys get drafted in the NFL, and you're
Yeah.
like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm so doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did it go that way for you?
No. And the more mature I become about that, and the older I get, the less hard I am on myself about that, because the statistics are not in my favour or anyone's favour, let alone an Australian's who wasn't bred to play the game. I mean, they play contact football from 6, 7 years old, so Jupiter's age.
Yeah.
And the skill gap is so obvious when you are playing against Americans who are the same age as you. It is ridiculous. I mean, I remember playing in the Down Under Bowl. We had a couple of teams, or I'd say 3 or 4 teams, and this has been a thing for a long time, but when I got into it, it was 3 or 4 teams consisting of kids from multiple high schools in state. So we had like Arizona, California, and then a couple of other states that fielded teams and brought them down under. And we versed them at Gold Coast Runaway Bay Sports Centre, the recreation centre down there, because that was the only field in Australia that had proper gridiron posts. And that was eye-opening, big time, absolutely. We're undersized, underskilled, undercoached.
So it didn't go well.
It didn't go well. It did not go well. And but that's because they have so many resources for that sport. I mean, it's like if a bunch of Americans come over here after playing AFL for a year of their life, and then they went up against, you know, the best local A-grade team, they would just get destroyed, because that's what we're brought up playing.
Yeah.
So that's the equivalent.
But it didn't discourage you.
Not at all, no. I was still going through high school with dreams of at least getting a college degree out of football, even if I wasn't going to get to the NFL. I mean, that would be great, but the college experience, you know, they talk about it in movies, and just the kind of opportunities that you can, just the opportunities you come across in a country like America. and the type of people you can meet over in a country as established as the United States are, I saw that as extremely valuable. And just, especially coming from a family where my mother is extremely worldly. She was born in New Delhi in India. She lived a portion of her life in Hong Kong. And so she has so much more world experience. And I always wanted that for myself as well. And so I thought, what's the most likely way of that happening for me? Going to school in another country through football. And the chances were high, maybe not Division 1, but there were plenty of other guys at my level that were going to junior colleges over in the States and then getting a Division 1 or Division 2 offer through their time at junior college. And so the reality was that I could definitely do that, but it just never panned out, unfortunately. Like I said, I met Jordan when I was very young. She was also super supportive of me going over there. But as much as she would say, I'll come over with you, we can do this, that was never a reality for college football, unfortunately, because they put you in dorms or they put you in a foster home with another kid from the school. They don't give you your own place or anything like that. And the lifestyle of a college athlete doesn't allow for much more than school, sport, health, and sleep.
Not conducive to maintaining a healthy relationship.
No, and Jordan and I were already quite committed to each other. I mean, we've had an extremely rocky time. We grew up together, and a lot of the time we grew in separate directions, but our tie to each other was always there through all of the hard growing apart. So we were already unspokenly very committed to each other. And so, not that held me back in any way whatsoever, but it was something that weighed on me when I was making decisions. Like I got an offer to go play high school football, and that's a good stepping stone. It wasn't a great high school, but it's high school football nonetheless. And I chose not to do it just because it didn't feel right, and I knew it was going to put my relationship with Jordan under stress, and I didn't believe in the opportunities that could come from going to that high school in particular. So I held out for something better, and unfortunately nothing better came. I just didn't value my youth back then. I didn't realize what an opportunity it was to get that offered to you at such a young age. That was when I was about 15, 16. I got that offered to me. And both my friend and I, my best friend at the time, we both declined and thought something better was going to come. This wasn't the offer for us. But the resources, like I said, are just not here in Australia. It was only recently that Jesse Williams has started up Elite Football, the Elite Academy, the program that he started, which is specifically tailored to readying you to go to school in the States for football. And I'm sure he'll open that up to other sports later down the track, but right now it's just making that more of a realistic scenario for kids who really want that, because it was just luck that we got an offer because one of our coaches knew someone who knew someone that was in a position to talk to someone at a school that would take a chance on us. And, not because we were extremely elite ball players, but because we were big enough, fast enough, and knew the most about football on our team here in Australia.
You didn't take it because you thought something better would come up. You didn't think the road from that high school would get you ultimately to college or to... Well, that's what it sounds like. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No. Yeah, that was exactly it. It wasn't appealing enough of a school.
So in hindsight, no offers came in. Had you taken it, do you still think that's as far as it would have gone? No way to know.
Honestly, there's no way to know. If I had gone to that high school and played football there, and I've known plenty of guys who have done this, and high school was the end of their football career.
Sure.
I played with them on representative teams. We played for Australia together in the World Cup. They got looked at. They went to high school. That was it. They played maximum 2 years there, realized the gap, came home, got into a career. They have a life and children here now. That was as far as they went.
The reason I asked that was, and I don't, anyone listening goes, why are you rubbing salt in the wound, man? It's like, it's not, because oftentimes it's easy to look at the opportunity missed and tell yourself, if I'd done that, things would be so different now.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
But you, quite often when you regret a decision, you only look at the positives that could have come from it. Not guaranteed positives, but you know. And I asked that because, as you said, you prioritize Jordan and your relationships here.
Yeah.
Because you're like, man, if I'm going to go, it's got to be like the opportunity. I'm not going for a maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it must be comforting at least to know you made the right choice. Because if you'd gone, let's say you sacrificed your relationship with Jordan, and then you did 2 years of high school, and then it's like, yeah, that's it, come back.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a big sacrifice.
And Jordan asks me that from time to time. Not anymore. More so when we were a bit younger. Do you wish you had gone over and played football? And do you think things would be different? And would we still be together? And all those questions, the ifs and maybes and, what could have been. But I feel like if I had made that decision, I wouldn't have the 3 children that I have today. And so I think I got the better trade there.
I'm asking because it's not the first sacrifice you had to make. And while we're on the theme of sacrifice, so for anyone who still thinks it's called gridiron, and it's not American football, it's not NFL, right? Yeah. They wouldn't even be aware that the CFL is a thing, or that the German league is the thing.
Yeah.
So do you want to go into a little bit of the opportunity that you could have had there that it just didn't pan out again?
Yeah, absolutely. So, once I'd kind of abandoned the dream of college and the NFL, and I come to the conclusion that the highest level of football I was going to play was here in Australia for fun. Or, the highest level that so far I've played is national representative at a World Cup. So that was as high as I got. It was for the IFAF World Cup, the International Federation of American Football. We played in the B pool against China, Austria, and Japan, and were rudely awakened by even the gap between us, because the European League is another. I'd say it without a doubt it goes NFL, CFL, which is the Canadian Football League, and GFL, which is the German Football League. And that's why there's Germans in the NFL now, because they play football at a high, and obviously that's because of the American influence after the wars and everything to do with that. And it's the same deal with Japan. They absolutely railed us because they move like one person, 11 of them all moving at the exact same time. The execution is ridiculous, and they're all little sumo wrestlers. The strength on the guys was, you couldn't even imagine. But I come to the conclusion I wasn't going to play any higher than that. And so I kind of abandoned all dreams of football. I thought, you know what, I'll just keep on. It's a hobby of mine. I'll play here in Australia for the Bayside Ravens. That'll be fun enough. And I just enjoy the sport. So it gave me a sense of purpose. And so after COVID, during the lockdowns, just before the lockdowns were in place and before COVID really kicked off, I had a couple of friends who went over to Europe. One played in Italy, the other played in Germany, with families. They took their families with them, and they had an experience as a family that I thought was really cool. And I thought, what if I could use my football for this worldliness that I was always chasing? Do you know what I mean? I thought, well, if my experience wasn't going to be at college and it wasn't going to be an education over in the States through football, why not a family holiday? And so I started to put all of my energy into pursuing a professional contract in Germany, which was great for my health. I got in the best shape of my life. I mean, that was peak for me. That was peak. I felt like a machine, and I knew that I could compete at that level. I was so confident in my ability. Even though I was carrying an injury at the time, I knew that it wouldn't stop me from succeeding over there. And it's heartwarming to hear from guys who I've played with who have gone and played at that level that wasn't unrealistic. I would have done well. I could have done well. But unfortunately, when I got the opportunity offered to me to go and play in Germany, I finally got on a call with a coach. It didn't pan out. They wouldn't take my family. So at the time we had Jupiter and Jungle. Jungle was still very young. Jupiter not in school yet. And so it was, we're not taking them out of school. We're just going to give them a time in Germany. And Jordan and Jupiter and Jungle can go and look at the sites and do whatever, or I can be with them during training and team film and all of that stuff. But they wanted me to bunk with the other Americans, essentially. They had guys coming from other countries that they were importing. If they imported me, it would be in a share home, and that would be unfair to do to those guys, first and foremost. And secondly, it wasn't realistic for the girls. So I had to say no, yet again. That was, at the time, that was a stab in the heart. I really thought I'd got it there. I really thought, all right, this is it. Finally, I'm in shape. I'm good enough to go. And it just didn't work out because, again, it wasn't the right thing to do. And so I had to say no, and that was the end of that. And after that, I realized that I'm not going to play professional football, and I'm okay with that. Because it was a love, and it was a hobby, but some things are just meant to stay hobbies.
People talk about the hierarchy of ethics and the choices that we make in life.
Yeah.
People talk about, you hear some people, and you would probably hear this through sport.
Yeah.
Oh, my family's holding me back. Often you'll hear athletes when they retire talk about the sacrifices that they made to achieve the things they achieved.
Yeah.
And often when they say that, it's the family that they sacrifice. I'm finishing, if they're a really good athlete, my career in my late 30s.
Yeah.
I'm now single, no kids.
Yeah.
Like, they sacrifice their younger years.
Yeah.
And everyone has choices in life, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to talk about the NFL is because you made sacrifices for your family. First of all, for your future family.
Yeah.
And then your realized family, like you had kids. And the opportunity, maybe we're not NFL, but an amazing opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
And you go, if my family can't come, it's a no. And that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt to make the decision. But it probably also, I gather from the way you've said it, it wasn't hard to have to make that decision in the sense that it's just a non-negotiable.
It was. That's exactly right. It was a non-negotiable. That was essentially, that was the main reason I was pursuing it at all. Yes, I wanted to fulfill my dreams of playing professional football at any level. I wanted to see the world. But now that I had started a family with Jordan, the main goal was for them to see it with me.
Yeah. And I want to credit that to you. The reason why I wanted to go through that, first of all, sacrifice is something that most mature people have to face in their life.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you make a decision that's significant that doesn't require some level of sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that one that you had to make was a pretty tough one because not many people who have a desire for professional sport get the offer and have to say no.
Yeah.
So it's hard. So I wanted to credit that to you because I'm a massive advocate for family. And the fact that you, and you were a non-Christian at this point, so you're not surrounded by a community of people that are necessarily telling you family is so important and that you need to put emphasis on that. You came to that of your own volition, that was important to you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something you should be very proud of. But it doesn't also mean that you don't mourn the fact that, oh man, like I've literally got mates that I can see playing.
Yeah.
I want to be doing that.
Exactly.
But yeah, and especially because they didn't have to make that sacrifice. So it also seems unfair.
Well, so that's the other thing I come to realize during this process, and talking about sacrifice and me making all these sacrifices. Jordan made a lot of sacrifices for me to go and get ready for that opportunity. I mean, I was out of the house daily for 2.5, 3 hours just at the gym. And then I would come home and I would take time to myself to prep my food, eat my food, make sure I was recovered, refueled, ready to go again tomorrow. And I put them on hold to a degree to do that. It taught us both a lot about how committed we are to each other, but it also it put our relationship between Jordan and I under enormous amounts of pressure and stress. And it was at a breaking point multiple times just for football. Even with the guys who went over with their families, I mean, we're still friends with them. We're still friends with their families. They're all good. They're still together. Everything is fine. They have beautiful children, and they had beautiful children there with them. But it also put them through different sacrifices as well. I mean, one of them got caught up in lockdown in Italy, and it was intense in Italy. I don't know if you remember COVID, but Italy were under it for ages, and they were stuck there. They couldn't come home. They couldn't go out. They couldn't have that holiday experience. Even though he wasn't out playing football, they couldn't have a holiday experience. They were tucked away in this small Italian apartment, just the three of them, because they'd put themselves in that position, and that's what they all decided was the right thing to do. And, you know, massive props to them for doing that, because the experience that they gained from that was invaluable as well. But it's just, I guess the point I'm trying to get at is sacrifices made across the board for everyone. Whether I went, there was going to be sacrifice made from Jordan, and even though I didn't go, there were sacrifices made from Jordan before I had to make the sacrifice of even saying no. So, yeah, I couldn't be more thankful to Jordan for allowing me to pursue that. And I felt bad that it amounted to nothing because of all the time that I sacrificed from her and the kids at that time to prepare myself for that opportunity. And then it had to be a no in the end. And I'm sure she felt a little defeated from that as well, because of how much she'd taken on for me to be able to go off and do that every single day, as well as playing football here in Australia. I wasn't only training for it, but I was still practicing, still playing. You know, I dragged her out to every single game. You know, sometimes I said, no, stay home. She would still come, because that's just the level of commitment Jordan has to me. And again, I know I've made the right decision by not going and playing football on those two occasions, the offers that I did have, because of that. It just reaffirms my decision so much. And yeah, you're right. I feel as if I made the correct decision. I got so much out of staying here in Australia, this house, my family, my friendship with you. I mean, we probably would have never met. I don't know if I would have become a Christian. All of these things, I would have had influences in different areas. But now that I am a Christian, I've come to the realization that God had a plan for me the entire time. And that just wasn't my purpose. That wasn't in the plan. That was me trying to do everything on my own.
That's probably a good segue to the next stage of life, right? So what I've really appreciated about you and Jordan is I have observed what you've just said, is that you're both very committed to one another, and you're both aware of the sacrifices that you've both had to make for each other. And I think it's good that you're aware of it. A lot of people, I don't want to say take for granted, but it's an unspoken thing. I think it's important that you both understand, so you both know the weight of each other's decisions in life, because it's a partnership, right? Being together is a partnership. You're doing it together, but you're both doing different roles.
Yeah.
So before we transition to where you're at now, let's talk about, so post-COVID and becoming a Christian, how did that all come about?
So it was a few years after COVID. I'd say, when was COVID again?
I think 2020, end of 21 it wrapped up.
Yeah, end of 2021. Proper. So we only came to Christ in 2025.
Yeah, okay.
So there were a few years after all of that. So football's not been in the picture for quite a while.
Yeah.
And it was only when we'd really decided this is where we're planted, we're building a family here, we need to lock in on what we're doing here together as a family, let's build something. coming to Christ was very spontaneous, super spontaneous. I mean, Jordan and I had been spiritualists for as long as we could remember, both coming up in Christian households. Jordan more so Catholic, mine were Pentecostal. She felt the calling to come back and just reanalyze what might have been misled or misunderstood when we were younger and had Christianity as an example for us. You know, I think I've told this before, but when I was in high school, you know, I sat down with God. I prayed. I said, if you're really there, I need something from you. And the something that I needed was a voice from the sky, or to hear something audibly, or to see something visually, because my pastor at the time, or my religious education teacher, had that experience. He saw Jesus. And I wanted that as well. I thought that's how it started for everyone. It's like, well, you become a Christian when he just appears to you and he talks to you, and that's how you know he's real. But I wasn't looking at all of the blessing that I already had in my life. I was completely ignoring that. And, you know, I didn't have kids at the time. I was in high school. But I didn't look at the fact that I had parents who loved me, a family who supported me in whatever I did. You know, there was no sort of dysfunction or lack of in any way. And so I didn't look at all of that as blessing. When we came back to church together, I was coming in a role of support for Jordan. I still made the decision that it wasn't for me. I didn't believe in it. Nothing happened when I tried in my life. And I just didn't think it was something we could do separately. I didn't think Jordan could come to church every Sunday if she decided that this was real. I didn't think she could come to church every Sunday and I stay at home and that be a positive example for our kids, because it wasn't just us anymore. It was our children watching our relationship. And so I thought I could at least just be there. It's just time to spend together. I mean, what else are you going to do on the weekend when you're a family man but spend time with your family? So I thought, you know what, I'll just go. And I went with an open mind. I didn't go closed off. I thought, if I'm going to come along and Jordan's going to be open to it, searching, I may as well open my heart as well and see what happens. You know, like I've said to others before, when I made the decision to let Jesus into my life and to give my life to Jesus, it was a decision of, well, if I do this and nothing happens, I'm not going to be any worse off. Lightning's not going to strike me from the sky. I'm not going to be hurt. Nothing will happen. And if I'd make this decision and something does happen, then it will be a radical transformation. It'll all be for the better. And I'll realize that there is so much more to life than I ever could have imagined. And that's exactly what happened. Once I stuck my hand up in that service, when the invitation was put out to the crowd, to all the newbies, if you're not in relation with God, and you know that's something that you wanted to do after listening to a message that so clearly related to where I was in my life at that time, which was very weird in itself. And I thought, this is just too spot on. How does that happen? Out of all the Sundays we could have come. And I put my hand up. And as soon as I did that, and even before we were being prayed over, I don't even think the pastor saw me put my hand up at the time. There was no, thank you for your hand over there. Thank you for, I put my hand up, nothing. So I'm like, that's fine. I was way at the back in the dark. So I wasn't expecting that. It wasn't for the attention, but that made it even more of a personal experience for me with God and with Jesus. It just opened me up. My entire heart opened up, and I felt so vulnerable and also so comfortable to just start crying in a room full of strangers around people I'd never seen or met before, who didn't know anything about me. and I just started crying in a way that I hadn't before. It was such a cry of sadness, but of joy at the same time. And that's the best way I can explain it. I was so sad to begin with, and so thankful and joyful straight after that feeling of sadness. It was just crying of pure joy, because I understood for the first time in my life how okay it was to not be perfect. You know, my whole life I was trying to get everything right. And for the first time in my adult life, I come to the realization that it's okay not to get everything right. And even though I'd done things so wrong in so many different areas of my life, I was still so loved and accepted and appreciated and valued. And there was still a purpose for me along my track.
It's a really beautiful way to articulate it, really, because I think a lot of people probably couldn't put it into words, that feeling.
I still can't really. That's as close as I can get.
That was pretty good. One thing I find quite interesting whenever new people come to our church, and this is just a bit of a plug for our church, is they quite often go, "Oh, this is not what I thought church would be."
Absolutely.
A lot of people seem to have their view of like a Catholic stained glass window.
Yeah.
You sit down, you read from a hymn book or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a really long, boring mass, and then you leave, and you're just like, "Well, what was that?"
Yeah. And
not to say that that's not right. I could go into the very philosophical details of why different types of church are appropriate for different people.
Yeah.
But that's for another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But our church, I've had a lot of people go, "Oh, it's like a bit like a rock concert."
Yeah.
And it is, because it's a Pentecostal church. It's big. Like, you're in a room with 800 people. So there's a lot of people
At
there.
least.
So it's easy to be lost in the crowd. But what I tell people, if they're nervous, is it's also to be invisible in a crowd. So if you're worried about people seeing you, you can very easily go along and people won't know that you're there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to people as a way for them to go, "Oh, great, well, I can go along and like check it out. No one will need to know and I'll bail." It's more just if that's what's holding you back from going, you don't need to worry about that. You can turn up. You can sit at the back of the room if you want to, similar to what you did, and just see if it's for you. Not everyone has the experience that you had where you're like, "Oh man, like they're literally preaching to me in this room of 800 people."
Yeah.
I've known people that have gone to church for 20 years as the husband of a wife who's always gone to church and still non-Christian. Yeah. Been there, been super involved because like, "Oh, I'm part of the community. I'll be involved. It's not for me, but I'll be involved, you know." Yeah. And that happens, right? Everyone's different. For anyone who's listening who's not Christian, at least give it a go.
And that's all I did.
What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. That was my thought process to a T. Just give it a go. I'd known about God and Christianity before. Maybe there was something I was missing. Maybe I just hadn't gotten the right lens.
So when you had that moment, was it almost like a crystallization, like, "Oh, all of those things that I felt was because I didn't have this"? And it sort of highlighted, now I know roughly where I'm heading in life? Or it wasn't a connection like that? Like, it wasn't like you were searching for something and you found it. Yeah. It was more like you walked in and you're like, "No, this seems right."
But that's the thing. I wasn't searching. Jordan was. I wasn't searching. I didn't feel like I was missing any pieces. I thought I had it all figured out. I was all good to continue the rest of my life how I had, molded my beliefs around what I had molded my beliefs around. I was all good with continuing down that path and living the rest of my life believing that, and I was sweet. But like you said, I went into the church also with a mind of, I don't know everything. Today, I don't know everything. Today, maybe there's something I've missed. I'll see how I feel when I get in there. And what I felt when I went in there was, give it a go, put your hand up. If nothing happens, you're all good. You're no worse off. At least you've tried. I'm a big believer of just trying. You don't have to succeed. You just have to try. And if you try, then you can never say, "I didn't give it a go." And I just gave it a go, and the rest is history. That's all you have to do. And that's essentially what I've come to learn faith in Jesus is just letting him do the rest. You give him your faith, you believe unwaveringly, he'll do the rest.
So tying it into your purpose and your meaning, I suppose, you were saying that when you had that connection, when you put your hand up and you felt everything that you felt, that you were now on a path with God and with Jesus. And can you now look back on football, knowing what you know now, and go, maybe there's a reason why that's happened, and do you have an idea now where you're headed? Or not yet?
Absolutely. I still don't know where I'm headed. I feel like now that I've become a Christian, and I've said this to you before, I still consider myself an infant Christian, only being baptized a year ago, and making that decision for myself. I was obviously baptized as a baby, but that wasn't my choice, and it wasn't because we were diehard Christians. Now I'm in a season of refining. He's now building me for the purpose that he has for me. I don't know what that is. I haven't heard of many occasions where he reveals that to you before the refining process, but you have to have faith through that process, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm in a process of refining. I know there's something down the track that I have to be ready for, and what I'm going through right now is preparing me to be ready for whatever that is. So, yeah, I was definitely immediately on a path with God, and Jesus was doing a work in me that I didn't know was happening even before I became a Christian. And yes, I 100% believe that I didn't play football for a reason that I'm not yet. I think one of the reasons is to have the family that I have today.
I would agree that my outside assessment would be that. I said this to you the other night. I think there is some sort of call over your family, not just you as a person, but over your family. There's a reason why your family has been held together so tightly.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but when you just get that sense when you meet someone, you're like, there's something different. You've got the family, you've got your faith, and life is moving forward. You're working at the time where?
Statement Collective. You mean when I came to church?
Yeah.
Yeah, Statement Collective. That's where I was at the time.
Yeah.
And that is a Brisbane-based jewelry brand. Two guys, Pat and Dan, visionaries, in my opinion, of jewelry and of fashion here in Australia.
Which is something that you're passionate about, jewelry and fashion. Or it's something that you're interested in.
Fashion, definitely, of any sort. Clothes, jewelry, accessories. Accessories as well. That's a part of fashion. And it was in the creative space. And I always consider myself somewhat creative. I mean, I've had lots of people comment on how I dress, so I guess I've got something right. But I always wanted to explore my creative side, and this was an opportunity that came to me when I was waiting for my contract in Europe. So I remember I'd been following Statement for ages on Instagram. I loved the jewelry that they were putting out at the time. It was nothing like I'd ever seen come out of Australia. And then when I found out that they were from Brisbane, I was, oh my gosh, this is so local. Like, these guys live in the same city as me and they're doing this kind of stuff. This is awesome. And I remember them putting up a story on their Instagram, just reaching out to see if there was anyone out there that was interested in coming on board and becoming part of the team. And I thought this would be perfect for me. At the time, I just finished up with my dad. His business closed down during COVID. We were running a property maintenance business. I took that over for him for a short while during his recovery from open heart surgery. And so that was my background. Nothing to do with creativeness, nothing to do with jewelry design. The most qualification I had for the role that those guys brought me on for was Jordan's social media. I've seen my partner do social media for quite a few years now. I've done a little bit of social media posting. I kind of understand how the whole collaboration stuff works. Is it going to be okay if I can do that for you guys? Because that was what it was for. at the time, I just reached out. I said, yeah, I'm keen. He gave me a call and he said, yeah, look, I'll let you know. I've got a few other candidates to consider. I'll let you know. And then he sent me a text a few hours later saying, hey, look, really keen on you. Do you want to come in on this day and we'll run you through the ropes? I said, yeah, absolutely. Just want to be super upfront. I'm expecting to leave within the year. I'm trying to get a contract to play football professionally in Europe. So this is a very temporary thing for me. Is that okay? And it was. So I was like, awesome. Let's see how far this goes. And hopefully it'll carry me through until my dream comes true. And then I can go play football. So I ended up staying there for about 4 years once I come to the decision that this isn't going to happen, or the realization that this wasn't going to happen. I'm not going to play football professionally in Europe. That's for other guys. Great for them, not for me. So I'll stick with Statement. This is awesome. I enjoyed the job. I enjoyed who I worked with. It was unlike any other opportunity that I had going for me at the time. So I thought, I'll just see how far I can take this. And I was the first employee that they had ever had. So I was as ground level as it got, apart from being a founder and an owner.
So you love the job. You're working in an area that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Then you become a Christian.
Yeah.
And it caused a bit of a tension.
There was a moral battle there for sure. Absolutely. Statement Collective is an extremely alternative brand. They appeal to an extremely alternative audience, and a lot of the because I was obviously running the collaborations, and what looked good for Statement wasn't what I personally agreed with anymore, and I felt so morally torn about that. Essentially, that's what it come down to. I mean, we were designing pieces of jewelry that pushed the narrative and agendas, or not agendas, but it spread what I didn't want to spread into the world anymore. And that wasn't all the jewelry. Most of the jewelry is for everyone. It was who we used to display the jewelry, how, the collaborations I would have to organize and endorse, the people I would have to endorse and encourage. That's what I didn't necessarily want to be overly involved with anymore, but that was my role at that company, was to continue to do that. And there wasn't anywhere for me to pivot to. There wasn't a lot of roles to do. I could pack orders, but I'd done my time doing that. I had escalated and I had more responsibility, bigger responsibilities. And then we had other employees now that helped me with that. But I just knew in my heart that they would do it better because they were more of that world than I was now.
So again, you have to make a choice now. Stay doing what you're doing or sacrifice something that you enjoy and find somewhere else to go, which at this point would be, well, where do I go?
I've got nothing, yeah. Absolutely.
So that then is a good way to segue into what you're doing now, right? So you've had that tension and decided, I can't. It's another non-negotiable in your life where you've gone, this is non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
All right, where do I go now? But what you do know is your number one priority is providing for your family.
Yes.
Because they've always been the number one. That's the thread through all of this, is that family's number one.
Yeah.
I've said to you before that I have so much respect for you because you're willing to do whatever you have to do to provide for your family, which I believe is the responsibility of the man of the family, is to provide. And I think most people would know that to be the case.
Absolutely.
But often, for men in particular, and it's not to say that women don't do it as well, but for men in particular, it requires you sacrificing something, whether that be time with your family or sacrificing your own personal time that you would like to do to unwind or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you know that it's you got to suck it up, because that's what it is to be a man. If you choose to have kids and to be the head of a household, it's your responsibility to be the one that provides for everybody. That's
the right word, I would say, is responsibility. Yeah.
And I think that's just another feather in your cap that I really respect you for, because you've gone, well, that's what I got to do. So what did you do to lead to where you are now?
first of all, thank you so much. I appreciate that. To answer your question, the only thing I knew that you could get into, make reasonable money without necessarily any qualification, just grit, determination, and a hardworking mindset, was something in the resources industry, aka mining. So that's what I did. I did everything I could to search up FIFO jobs, and particularly mining away from home, any kind of trade or something like that. And so what I did was just, what anyone does in the trying to get into the FIFO industry is search up entry-level positions, no experience mining roles, traineeships, all of that kind of stuff. And I just put out feelers to everything. And a reoccurring role that kept coming up was lease hand. And for those who don't know, lease hands are essentially everyone's little helper on a oil or gas rig. And so in my case, it ended up being a coal seam gas drilling rig. We drill wells into the earth or the formation, into coal seam gas pockets or seams. And we lay pipe, perforated pipe and blank pipe, so that the gas rises to the surface, and then we can extract it. We don't do that. We just drill the well and we leave. We go drill the next. But lease hand was what kept popping up. You don't need any experience to be a lease hand. They can teach you everything you need to know. You just have to not quit within the first 3 days, which is what most people do. So I've come to find. And I don't blame them.
So why? What is it about the job that people would rock up and go, no, I'm not doing this?
Well, the work to begin with. I mean, it's an extremely dangerous environment. I don't think many people really understand just how dangerous until they get there. And with danger comes, I think, a lot of natural stress. I mean, every alarm in your head and your genetic code is telling you, what are you doing here? This is not safe. Watch out for that. Watch out for this. You're alert. And then you do that for 12 hours for 14 days straight. And so I think a lot of people don't have the endurance, but also weren't brought up necessarily with the work ethic to last. I think that's a big thing at the moment, especially people in my generation, is a work ethic or lack of. So I would say that's the biggest contributor.
Just as a segue, because this wasn't sort of something I intentionally wanted to talk about, but because you've brought it up, why do you think that is? Why do you think people from your generation don't have that work ethic? If you don't know, it's fine. We can move on. I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows. I think the thing I could relate it to, I mean, you are what you are surrounded by. And what are you surrounded by before anything else? Your parents. Essentially, there was a lot going on in the world that required them to make a lot of sacrifices, and a lot of the time the sacrifice was their children. Yeah.
Like we were speaking about earlier.
Yeah.
And there were certain things that made life easier. Technology came out. That was a big thing. The internet. All these kinds of things were happening, and millennial parents, Gen X, baby boomers, they were integrating this into their families for the first time. No one else had done it before. And so they were trying to juggle this new technology, this new way of life. And how do you bring your kids along for that transition? That was a worldwide transition.
Well, the world also didn't know that we needed to safeguard our kids from social media.
Exactly.
But having grown up knowing what you know now, what do you think for your kids? Like, I know for me personally, unless my kids have a reason to need one, they're not having one before 16.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a tool.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It is not an entertainment site. It is not for entertainment purposes whatsoever, which is what it, was mainly for when I was younger, was like, oh, you're just watching videos and Vines. That was what was in at the moment, was Vine. And unless my kids have a need, like you said, absolutely not. Yeah. As long as I possibly can, I will keep them away from that. The internet is bad enough, let alone social media as well. Technology, that's inevitable. School is using iPads. You can't keep them away from technology, and you shouldn't, because it's a tool, in my opinion.
Well, you don't want them to be left out either.
You don't want them to be left out, and you don't want them to be less skilled
Yes.
and capable than a lot of other people, because most people know how to use technology, and you don't want to rob them of that skill, because it is a skill.
Of course it is.
It's like when you used to put, Word and Microsoft package and all of that on your resume. It's like, I know how to use this technology. That's kind of the bare minimum, is know how to use an iPhone, an iPad, a computer, all of that kind of stuff, in Australia at least.
Yeah.
In a Western country. So, absolutely not.
Do you think, because you were a dad quite young,
Yeah.
so for anyone listening, you're 27 now, right?
Yes.
3 kids.
3 kids.
So I had my first kid at 25, 26. Yeah. So I've got 4.
Yeah.
My youngest when I was 31. So you're like a lot younger than I was. And when I had kids, I was considered young.
Yeah.
So you guys are like, compared to the average person, really young for kids.
Absolutely.
But do you think, the reason I emphasize that is, do you think that had a lot to do with your maturity and your work ethic? Because you knew going and working hard on a work site is probably still easier than raising young children. Like, I say that in jest, but also seriously, because it is not like, when people say to me, oh, what does your wife do? And I say, she's the one that works hard in our family.
Yeah.
She's a full-time mum, and it is full-time. There's no breaks.
No, there is none.
Kudos to anyone out there that's a stay-at-home mum. That is the hardest job in the world.
Absolutely. Jordan's in the exact same boat. Yeah. I wanted her to stay home. And, it's not like I forced her to stay home. I knew that she wanted to be a mother, and I wanted her to be able to do that without distractions of anything else. But absolutely, that was a huge factor in my maturity at a young age. I mean, that and the fact that I was brought up to be mature by my parents. Being an only child, they just put everything into you. I was brought up to be mature, but I also understood the weight of the responsibility of starting a family and what it took, the kind of sacrifice it took to provide for a family that you started. That was on you, your decision. So I was 21 when I had Jupiter, our eldest. Jordan was 23. So still younger than you were when you had your first, and we had no idea what we were doing.
Bit of a secret for anyone who hasn't had kids, who's waiting to be ready.
You're never ready.
No one knows what they're doing.
You're never ready.
And it's not until you get to like the age. So I'm at the age now that I remember my dad being when I was a kid. And,
wow.
And I thought my dad knew everything. I'm like, my dad is a hero. He can do no wrong. And now I'm the age I remember my dad being, I'm like, oh, he had no idea what he was doing.
No idea.
And that's the truth for all parents. So anyone out there is like, oh, one day I'll be ready. You won't be ready. Just do it. If you're going to have kids, just do it.
Exactly.
It's great. It's the best thing that'll ever happen to you.
Yeah.
Faith and family established, forefront of what's priority for you.
Absolutely.
You're on the job site. It's not necessarily what you want to do, but you know that it's providing the life for your family that you all want.
Yeah.
Based on, I guess, your newfound faith, your goals moving forward for your family and what you desire, and even without knowing necessarily where your career is going to go, you have feelers out of where you're hoping it might end up, but then you've also got your passions on the side that you would also like to do one day.
Yeah.
All of those things together, the final question I like to ask, it's a hard one because you haven't been I don't prep you for it, you've got to just instinctively answer it, is what makes you hopeful for the future?
Well, I feel like there's an extremely simple answer to that.
Great.
What do you put your hope in? Being a new Christian, I'd say what makes me hopeful for the future is God. Now that I have faith in my life, I don't worry as much because Jesus will provide. And that's not to say you can sit around and do nothing and everything will work out and you'll just be fine. He's put you on a path to do something. But I'm faithful and I'm hopeful because I have God.
I love that answer. So my desire with this podcast is to provide a little bit of light in the darkness. So the world is pretty bleak, and there's plenty of things, especially on social media, to make you feel pretty down about the world and feel like, what's the point of going on? But I feel if you look at the right things, if you look at family, you look at faith, you center your life around the things that are good rather than things that are selfish and the things that are fleeting. You know, like you've talked about, sacrifice for the right reasons, personal responsibility, gratitude for the things you do have. Those are the things that give you hope when it's centered around, as we believe, that God is guiding your steps. Absolutely. And that you don't need to worry. Yeah. If you can have those things and see that that's the truth, life isn't as dark as people think it is. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because I know enough about your story that I think there are a lot of people that can relate to your journey, and there will be a lot of people that don't feel hope like you feel hope. So it's good for you to be able to talk through it all and they go, yeah, really, or what makes him, okay, he's hopeful because of what you've said. Yeah. So I love the way that you've summed that up.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you coming and talking with me today.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you so much.
And I just it's just nice having you as a friend as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
All right. Well, I've taken an hour of your time, so I'll let you go. But thanks, man.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
All right, guys. That's it for today. I really hope you got something out of that. And I will catch you next time on Rule of Reason.